And now we gotta talk about politics, because Trump just confirmed one of his most radical immigration ideas, and people are concerned. A Truth Social post that Trump put out late Monday night was him responding to somebody who reported, "Good news. Reports are that the incoming real Donald Trump administration is prepared to declare a national emergency and will use military assets to reverse the Biden invasion through a mass deportation program." Trump quote tweeted this and said, "True," in all caps with 3 exclamation marks. So with that post, Trump confirmed that he's going to follow through on his pledge for mass deportation and even wants to use a national emergency and the military to do it. I understand why people are so deeply concerned about our border crisis, and I support border security and deportation of some illegal immigrants. But I still think that this vision from Trump takes things way too far, and if he actually followed through on it, would be kind of a disaster. First and foremost, I really don't think using a national emergency declaration for something like this is appropriate. The border has been an issue for years, and honestly even decades, and an astute crisis happening in the moment like a hurricane or a natural disaster, that's what emergency powers are supposed to be used for. By the same logic that Trump uses to try to justify using emergency powers for immigration, a Democratic president could use emergency powers to address student loans or climate change or other things. And that's not what those powers are there for. They're meant for very limited circumstances to address imminent problems happening that day, not as an end round to get to long-running problems by bypassing Congress or the usual channels. I also really don't like the idea of the military doing this. That's why we have federal agencies like ICE and like Border Patrol, that we want civilians enforcing the law in our own country, not the US military. There's something kind of disturbing and alarming about the idea of military personnel going door to door and arresting people to deport them and going into Americans' homes to get their undocumented family members. I think that crosses a bright red line between civil life and military force, which is supposed to be used outside of our country, not to police it internally. I also just think the entire program of mass deportation is a mistake. Let me explain what I mean, and you guys just hear me out on this even if you disagree. There are roughly 13 million illegal immigrants in the United States today. Deporting that many people would be an extremely expensive logistical nightmare. A new report from the pro-immigration American Immigration Council estimates that it would cost $88 billion a year, or nearly $1 trillion over a decade, to deport that many people. That is a jaw-dropping amount of money that could be used for other things. They report that just a single year of that million deportation regime, with its $88 billion price tag, would cost nearly twice the annual budget of the National Institutes of Health, nearly 4 times the budget of NASA, nearly 3 times as much as the federal government spends on child nutrition, and more than the government gives out in the Child Tax Credit program. It's also 18 times more than the entire world spends each year on cancer research. What else could you do with all that money? Build over 40,000 new elementary schools, construct over 2.9 million new homes in communities around the nation, fund the Head Start program for nearly 79 years, pay full tuition and expenses for over 4.3 million people to attend a private college for 4 years. Buy a brand new car for over 20.4 million people. So if you want to justify Trump's mass deportation plan, you've got to point to massive harms that all 13 million of these people are causing that would outweigh such an astronomical cost. And given how many of those undocumented people are women, children, or men who are just working in their communities and not really doing anything wrong other than being here without papers, that's a tough sell. I think the Trump administration should target people for deportation who've committed other crimes, get them out of the country. But the people who are just here peacefully working, let them stay. Although we should secure the border and fix the broken asylum system to try to stop this flow, because it's not sustainable, getting rid of those who are here, at least the majority of them who are just peaceable people, would end up being an economic and moral catastrophe. These people are filling vital jobs in our country, which already has a labor shortage in everything from hospitality to construction and beyond. Removing them all over the span of a couple of years would devastate the US economy even more than a recession, potentially. The council reports that mass deportation would lead to a loss of 4.2% to 6.8% of annual US GDP, or $1.1 trillion to $1.7 trillion in 2022 dollars. That's more income that would be lost in the US economy than was lost in the Great Recession from 2007 to 2009. And what's strange is that this would actually hurt some red states particularly hard. The negative impact would be the most significant in California, Texas, and Florida, the three states that were home to 47.2% of the country's undocumented immigrants in 2022, and where 1 in every 20 residents would be deported. Local economies in Texas and Florida would be devastated without these undocumented immigrants, and things like housing construction would go way down, leading to higher home prices. Many Americans would also lose their jobs because of the economic slowdown that would occur, and because many of these undocumented immigrants run small businesses that employ many other actual citizens. Among the deported would be 1 million undocumented immigrant entrepreneurs who generated $27.1 billion in total business income in 2022. So the result of Trump's mass deportations, if he really were to try to get all or most of these people out of our country, would not be a booming economy like we saw in his first term, when he did targeted deportations, not mass deportations. It would actually be an economic nightmare, worse for many Americans. There's also a moral dimension of this. It would honestly just be wrong to rip apart millions of families. But that's what mass deportation would entail, because a lot of these undocumented immigrants have family members who are citizens. Maybe they came to this country illegally, but their kids, for example, that rely on them, that they take care of, are born here and are US citizens. If you deport their mom and dad, you're going to force those kids into what? The foster system? As the council reports, deporting undocumented immigrants would separate 4 million mixed status families, affecting 8.5 million US citizens with undocumented family members, 51.1 million of whom are US citizen children. It would slash the incomes of their households by an average 62.7%, or $51,000 per year. There's no way to do mass deportation without separating countless parents from their children and tearing apart families, including American citizens. I don't understand how that's pro-family or pro-life or in line with any of the other values that many Trump-supporting conservatives say they support. I understand that if you look at polling, mass deportation is very popular, but I think a lot of people haven't thought through what it would truly entail or the impact it would have on the American economy. That's why I don't support this, and I hope Trump does something much more scaled back when he's actually in office. What do you guys think? If you disagree with me, I do want to hear from you, so let me know in the comments below.